record. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our third quarterly meeting on CEDAW. My name is Elahe Amani, and I'm chair of Women's Intercultural Network. We're very pleased and glad to see all of you here. We have a very special guest today for this program today, and she's with us, Parisa Ijadi Maksudi. She was the mover and shaker in San Diego County, not city, San Diego County CEDAW ordinance. Just a brief introduction of Parisa. Parisa Ijadi Maksudi is a commissioner and vice chair of the San Diego County Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. Since 2019, she has chaired the Commission's CEDAW committee and is a founding member of the statewide CEDAW challenge team. A graduate of University of Michigan, Davis School of Law, and the Racial Justice Institute, Parisa has represented low-income, minoritized family and individuals in civil rights and poverty law cases across California since 2010. In addition to participating law full-time, she served as the adjunct law professor at USD Law, where she teaches the law school's poverty law courses. And we are very glad to have Parisa today for us to share the learning outcomes of the San Diego County CEDAW ordinance. Thank you, Parisa. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Elahe, and thank you, Gail. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
Thank you. So we are eager to hear. I know it's going to be brief because you can talk 10 hours on how the journey that you had on San Diego County ordinance, but share your learning outcomes from that process.
Thank you, Elahe. So 5 minutes. I'm used to court where they tell you how long you have to speak. So how long would you like me to speak for?
10 minutes, 15 minutes, that would be good. I know you have a lot to share.
10 or 15 is perfect. I'm gonna make a note of that. Okay, so hi everybody. Thank you again for doing all you do for gender justice nationally and internationally. I greatly admire the work that WIN does, and especially the leadership of Elahe and Gail. Jurisdictions like San Diego would not be in the position that they're in, would not be able to zealously advocate for and be informed by what has been achieved in other jurisdictions if it wasn't for the national and volunteer-based leadership of leaders like Elahe and Gail. So thank you so much for all you do internationally to change the lives of women and girls. So I am delighted here today to speak about the San Diego CEDAW ordinance. And so first, I will tell you about the ordinance itself. Second, I will tell you about the timeline for the ordinance with some challenges we faced and some suggestions we have for other jurisdictions who may face the same types of issues. And then third, what I will do is I will answer a couple questions about the ordinance that have been common questions that we've received, in case that is helpful for other jurisdictions that are looking to implement a CEDAW ordinance, or if it's helpful in case you have the same question that pops up. And so starting right off. So I feel honored to be on the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls, and also to have had the leadership of and mentorship of a former chair. So when it comes to working on CEDAW ordinances, the first thing that I want to just acknowledge is the institutional knowledge for every jurisdiction is so important to take into account when performing CEDAW advocacy. And so in San Diego County, the ordinance itself is a detailed ordinance, but when it came to the initial advocacy for the ordinance, we would not have been able to get to where we were if it weren't for the leadership of the former chair of the commission, Jenny Prisk. So I encourage everyone before they get started to really tap into the experts in their region, regardless of whether or not they're still in their formal leadership roles. So our San Diego ordinance contains 6 sections. It includes a section on the local principles of CEDAW, which is divided into 7 subsections addressing issue areas. It also has a section, of course, on local implementation, including the intersectional gender analyses and the action plans. And so the intersectional gender action plans are by each county unit, department, program, commission, board, but also a 5-year countywide intersectional gender equity plan to take the granular to the holistic. The ordinance mandates an intersectional discrimination approach and focuses on poverty alleviation. First, the intersectional approach. An intersectional approach is imperative, and let me tell you why. When we do gender justice work, we must make sure that we mitigate rather than perpetuate discrimination, including based on race, ethnicity, immigration, age, and familial status. And so we know that multiple forms of discrimination compound to disadvantage and oppress women, including based on those factors, whether it's race, ethnicity, disability, immigration, or age. And so having an intersectional framework was vital and of the utmost importance to us, given the diversity of the County of San Diego. We also know that we need to focus on poverty alleviation because we want to center women who are most disproportionately adversely impacted by our institutions. And so we are proud that this ordinance prioritizes identifying, analyzing, and eliminating discriminatory barriers in services that are provided by the county. And so as a poverty attorney, a lot of my work over the last, more than the last decade has been on representing people in poverty, people who are poor. And when it comes to being poor, you are often receiving services from a city or county. And those services are your lifeline. It's food stamps, food security for you and your children. It's a subsidy so you can afford housing and no longer live in your car. And it's income security so that you're able to buy basic necessities for you and your family. And so we know that being a woman makes you more likely to live in poverty than being a man. We know that being a single mother makes you much more likely to live in poverty than other individuals. And so what I'm really proud of is the ordinance explicitly references the administration of public benefits. So those services and programs that were intended to alleviate poverty and ensure that individuals in poverty have their basic fundamental human needs met. This also directly impacts women in poverty who are minoritized. So who are part of socially constructed groups that have historically been disadvantaged intentionally, including by race and ethnicity. And so that's a brief summary of 2 very important factors, intersectional approach and poverty alleviation. And then I want to also mention that the ordinance language itself is explicitly inclusive when it comes to women, who are women covered by the ordinance. And I'll talk about this a little bit more if there's time left at the end. But I want to mention that because there's been a lot of misinformation in the news about this ordinance going above and beyond what the law mandates, which is just completely incorrect and reflects just a basic misunderstanding of the law in California. So our ordinance, while we're proud of it, it does not do anything more when it comes to the definition of women than what the law already mandates. Effective date. The ordinance went into effect 30 days after its adoption, which was on May 10th. And within 180 days, the county will be presenting the Board of Supervisors with a plan for having a qualified expert, an external qualified expert, conduct the baseline analysis with our commission's input. And that baseline analysis will be from an intersectional approach. And it's very important to us that the analysis not be only on what the county's programs and services are. So we don't care only about employment. You know, it's important to us that we have parity. It's important to us that women are promoted at the same level as men. But what's very important to us is also all other aspects of the county's program and services. And to be able to identify what's happening internally versus externally, whether there's a disproportionate impact, we want to know who is the county. And so the baseline analysis will also include an analysis of the demographics of the county of San Diego. And that only then can that comparison of how services and programs are impacting the county effectively occur. So that is a summary of the ordinance. Now I'm going to briefly go over the timeline of the ordinance, which will take 2 minutes. So in December 2019, our commission held our annual event with the Board of Supervisors. And so this annual event is an event where we update the elected officials who appointed our commissioners about the work that we're doing. And so at that time, as the CEDAW committee chair, I updated the Board of Supervisors on behalf of my committee about the efforts we were making at the city level, so the city of San Diego. And those are, again, efforts that were made possible thanks to the mentorship of former chair Jenny Prisk. And so during that meeting, we were able to explain the vital importance of a CEDAW ordinance and also discuss all of the data that I had compiled for the city to explain why there was the need for an ordinance, why women were disproportionately adversely impacted by the basic lack of certain analyses in certain areas. And so the county, including the now chair, Nathan Fletcher, stated their interest in moving forward with a county ordinance in the future. And so during the next year, the pandemic, of course, after December 2019, delayed efforts. But by 2020, end of 2020 and 2021, we were back on track discussing how the pandemic only furthered the need for a CEDAW ordinance, given how inequities were only growing during the pandemic and because of the pandemic. And so one suggestion that I want to just briefly mention is for anyone who is doing advocacy to have a CEDAW ordinance adopted, I strongly encourage you to do a deep dive into the data. The data is publicly available. It's very easy to pull and to analyze, and it really helps you better understand the needs of your own community, and it allows you to better advocate when speaking with elected officials about the urgency and the importance of a CEDAW ordinance. And so The memorandum I had drafted for the city that we then used with the county, that actually served as the board letter, the bulk of the board letter, which was the motion for the Board of Supervisors to move forward with the adoption of a CEDAW ordinance. And so I can't emphasize enough the importance of doing the groundwork, having the information ready to go, because it's making life easier for your elected officials once the time is right to move forward with action. You're able to give them the data, the support, and the overview that they need. And then I'll just end with saying that there were two votes on the ordinance per our protocol. The first was a 3-2 vote, which was along party lines, Democratic versus Republican in April. And the second was the same 3-2 vote, again, against party lines along party lines in May. And in addition to Elahe and Gail being a tremendous pivotal and important role in getting this passed, advisory board member Mary Hansel drafted and worked on a publication of a opinion piece to demystify some of the misinformation that was being discussed. Nancy Bermau, who is on the line now, also played a pivotal role in ensuring that the county was supported by our statewide CEDAW Challenge Network. And many of the folks Nancy works with were part of this great effort to get this passed. So for next steps, we are hoping to adopt and planning to adopt a CEDAW ordinance in every city in the county, at which point we would be continuing to provide support to any of our elected officials working in those capacities. Thank you, Elahe.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Excellent report from the San Diego. You captured all the highlights of your journey for this ordinance in the county. I'm also pleased that Nancy is joining us from Europe on her vacation, but she's joining us here. So I'm going to pass it to Gail to lead the rest of the meeting in terms of the discussion or other things on the agenda. Gail? You're mute, Gail, you're mute.
Thank you. I'm muted. My neighbor was mowing, so I muted myself. So glad to see everyone. Of course, this is on a summer morning. This is a difficult time to join, a few people unable to be here. But what we would like, we have said a year ago, we started having quarterly meetings with the CEDAW, Cities for CEDAW community. And that includes hundreds of people actually, potentially. And we often have a large, at our January meeting and our March meeting, we had quite a number of people, and we decided to highlight a city or county each time. And so in this case, we're highlighting San Diego. Last time was Long Beach, and before that was Bozeman, Montana, so that we can get a picture of different localities approaching CEDAW resolution or ordinance in their varying approaches. So we thank you so much, Parisa. We're following your journey for a long time, but beside that, to see it come to fruition is so gratifying. It really lends itself to our next topic, which is the challenges we face. Because if this were easy, it would be easy. We would be having many more anti-discrimination ordinances around the country. We see how difficult it is because the challenges are numerous, from operationally to strategically, conceptually. All of the elements that go into this kind of movement, this kind of energy, is very difficult for everyone. And so we're going to spend just a little bit of time talking about the challenges. I would say that, Parisa, while we have you, I don't know if you can stay to the end for questions, but I would love to hear you talk about the challenges you face, just briefly, the definition of women issue, the transgender issue, and how you handle that. I put the article in the chat along with the agenda, but I see it didn't copy as a link, but we can send everyone the link to that article because I think it really helped. But if you could just talk briefly about the challenges and how you had to regroup and deal with them.
Thank you so much, Gail. Yeah, so the first thing I want to just mention is when dealing with elected officials, the more you can educate and provide information, the earlier on, the better. Because I truly feel that it was almost like an avalanche. So there was misinformation that was put out there. Media picked it up, and then it caused more misinformation. And constituents, individuals in the community who elected the elected officials, then participated in sharing very compelling examples of what they were afraid of based on that misinformation. And so, it's not right or not just for any of us to question someone else's fear. But the problem is when someone is making emotional statements based on, a fearful outcome, when that entire outcome is just based on a flawed premise, then it's very difficult to have a conversation based on the facts. And so I think, I don't want to villainize anybody. Nobody, there was misinformation out there. And in this day and age, it's very hard to demystify some fears. But what I will say is I would encourage anyone working on these issues to certainly try and get ahead of anything that may be weaponized from a CEDAW ordinance, so that everyone has the right information to work with. And the transgender hate, the confusion about the definition of women, all of that in San Diego was just incredibly confusing because the law is what the law is. The county couldn't have adopted an ordinance that didn't comply with and align with the law. So county council, the attorneys for the county, had reviewed the ordinance. The ordinance complied with California law. It did not conflict. If it did conflict, it would actually not be an effective portion of the ordinance. But overall, there was certainly a lot of misinformation, and it was difficult to watch because people were very emotional about information that was just based on a flawed premise.
Mhm.
But hopefully that answers the question, Gail.
It gives you a sense that you're fighting forces beyond your coalition and your efforts, because it's very focused, and that these forces, whether it's a misinformation campaign or a media release, really does tell you that you have to prepare if you can. I will submit also my experience here in Kansas City, Missouri. And then also on the Kansas side, because we're a bi-state city, we've in one of our talks to the city council, we were very close to the vote for the ordinance. We knew we were close. We were expecting a photo op really that evening. But suddenly one council member said, well, I don't really want to support, I don't think we should support here in the heartland anything to do with the United Nations. After all, we are the United States. We have our own sovereignty. We don't need to agree or kowtow to any international treaty. We were floored. We did not expect that. We had great conversations in prior meetings and a lot of support for the CEDAW campaign that we were presenting. And so it was a great surprise, and we didn't have time actually to regroup at that meeting. So we had to simply say, okay. And then also another council person said, well, I withdraw my vote then, because I think you're right. So it delayed us and consternated us, and we had to really think, oh, why didn't we prepare for that? Because we hadn't mentioned the UN, because here in the heartland, we don't often mention the UN except in UNA meetings, which is a very strong organization here, but keeps to peacekeeping generally and refugees only. as topics. So there are times when you're not prepared for what will come up or what might impact you. I will relate also the situation in Berkeley, California, which had and Nancy, you might want to comment, had an early positive ordinance, and then there's been no implementation. So these are challenges that you don't expect. You know, the leadership changes, officials change, the momentum for this effort changes as the city and county redirect their energies on other issues. And so it has languished. And so now it's beefing up, it's coming up again to get more energy and insight with the California CEDAW Challenge and other efforts. So there are challenges that come from everywhere. Nancy, I don't know if you want to comment, and then I'd love to hear from Roopsie and your effort because you work very hard in your area.
I could just say a word, which is just to say hi, and I'm so happy to be here today. I am.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Yeah.
I am traveling in Europe, and my whole family got COVID on the flight here. I didn't get it, but now we're undergoing a huge heat wave, which came up from Africa, and everybody's miserable. And I have to say, I wish I was back home in California with the beautiful weather. But I just, and again, I'm sorry because of the time difference. It's kind of been distracting I want to hear this whole meeting from start to end later, but I did want to say, I also wanted to point out that Mei-Lin is also on the call with us from Berkeley, and she is the current chair of the Berkeley Commission. I know that Mei-Lin and her commissioners are working on what it's going to take to get CEDAW front and center and actually begin the implementation. So that's one of the things as part of the CEDAW challenge that I started again, which is a reboot of the original CEDAW challenge, is really going jurisdiction by jurisdiction across the state to see where we are, because everybody's in a different place. And some places have never heard of CEDAW, and others, like my own county in Santa Clara County, we've been working on it for 23 years and we still don't have the ordinance, but we're getting close. We're finally getting close. And then you have Berkeley, which has an ordinance but has never implemented it. So somehow pulling together and drawing all the pieces together and helping each other so that we're all learning together is I think making a tremendous impact. So
so thank you.
Yeah.
Merci beaucoup. That's wonderful. Mei-Lin, I'm sorry, I don't think we've met, but we're so glad you're here. And perhaps at a later meeting, we can ask you to, as you move along and what you're going to do. But could you comment just a little bit about your early efforts and how you will approach this?
Hello, everyone. Great to meet you all on Zoom. So I was not on the commission when CEDAW originally passed back that was in 2012. And what we've been working on as a commission is to try to get it implemented by having a survey of internally, right, of gender, wage equity by gender. So that was one thing that a previous chair was working on. And right now, just kind of lining up with the CEDAW challenge and reaching out to the mayor, who was part of the original city council group that did pass the ordinance, in order to figure out ways to get it implemented at the city level. So trying to find some of the pieces of CEDAW that can be readily implemented. And so that's the thing that I'm going to be working on in terms of getting the mayor to sign the current CEDAW challenge and then also move forward. We just haven't had the opportunity to meet as a group on quorum right now because we're a really small but mighty group. Carol, who's also from the Berkeley Commission, is here on the call as well. So we're going to just continue to work towards pieces of implementation and supporting the other folks in the state of California. Like I gave a presentation to the Alameda County Commission to assist them with being able to put together a campaign plan and identify a champion among the board of supervisors to help get CEDAW passed at the county level within Alameda County.
Yes, you raise an interesting point, is to find your champions, and you have to be painstaking at this phase where you are. That's really excellent to have a champion. Carolyn, do you want to make a comment, and then we'll move on? Carolyn, I don't see you.
Carol, not on this issue.
Oh,
Not on
okay,
this particular issue.
okay.
I'm still learning. Thank
Good.
you. I'll
Okay,
see you on
Carol,
another issue.
Carol, I see. Forgive me. Okay, so Rupsi, you've been with the CEDAW initiative quite a long time. Do you have any comments that you could add where we're facing challenges that you've overcome?
I can definitely talk about the challenges we are currently facing. And I'm so glad I was able to join this call, because one of the important things that I learned, which is lacking in Orange County, is, the leadership taking that responsibility. And what I heard from Parisa is you need to educate these officials. And I think that's one takeaway for me in Orange County. And Elahi knows this. And, in Orange County, we have 6 mayors who are females, but one, only Farah Khan, brought it to the city of Irvine. Yeah. It's not an ordinance, but it's still, it's a start. Mm-hmm. But what about the other female mayors? I did speak to a couple of them. There's no traction there. Mm-hmm. So obviously there is something that I need to do and go beyond at this time. And I don't know if there is misinformation, which Parisa was referring to earlier, or I don't know what the deal is, but I just need to get this off the ground and running again. So there's been gaps. So Laguna Woods was our first victory. That was in 2015 or 2016. And then there was a lull. And now Farah did that last year. And again, there is a lull. So what else do we need to do in Orange County to keep this going? I was so hopeful with 6 female mayors. I was like, wow, this is our turn. And I actually wrote to Soon Young Yoon and everyone that, hey, looks like we will get some traction. And I failed. So I'm just taking my nuggets from this meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Rupsi, and been in contact with WIN and Cities for CEDAW for quite a few years. And we did, before Farah Khan passed the ordinance in Irvine, we did try it once. There were so many learning outcomes from that experience, Rupsi.
Yes.
But
yes.
I think what Farah Khan did for Irvine, which maybe there are some learning outcome from that, is that she formed a committee in community, not at city level, of all the CEDAW advocates. And I was part of it. And we really brainstormed and strategize how to make it happen. So I think for places that we have community members that can contribute to the tactics and strategy for navigating this passing CEDAW ordinance, I think that might be a good idea. The other thing on the note of Parisa, because we were online with all the public sessions in San Diego, and out of my curiosity, I was reading all these comments, hundreds of comments, misinformation. One of the things, Parisa, later I noticed that those comments and when San Diego went through that process, the 2 public sessions, there was a documentary came out, that what is a woman documentary, which is many of the offensive words or not inclusive thoughts that was shared about the trans and LGBT community is formulated in that documentary. So the timing also of that documentary being out was a factor in people, so we have to pay attention. I didn't know at the time, but later when I saw that documentary, then I realized that we really need to strategize and just see what's going on and where these feedbacks, hundreds of them, and misinformation coming from.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Elahi. But I do also want to add one thing that, again, I picked up from what Parisa said is, present to the county the local issues, get the data and do the analysis and present, which we did with Laguna Woods, which we also did with the city of Irvine in round 1. when we failed. But yes, so I would say that works. If you can collect the data, which I did from the US Census, and all, there's several sources for that data and reliable data. So that was not the issue. The only issue, just like Elahi mentioned, was the misinformation and getting around it. So I think, Elahi, between you and I, if we can, start working on getting it in Orange County at the county level, I think we should be, maybe start there and then come down to the mayors. I don't know. I'm just, like a
Thank you.
sub. This is, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Roopsie has her hands up.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, Nancy, I'm sorry. I didn't see you. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Well,
Nancy.
I just have a couple of thoughts, and I love this forum where we can really brainstorm. So first of all, I just wanted to say to Roopsie, it's so great to meet you. I'd love to connect with you. I'm on a mission to connect all of us, as we all are, across the state. And a couple of things for you. Number one, I think Elahi is aware of this, but the CEDAW Challenge team has been invited to the California Cities Association annual event in September, which will be held in Long Beach. And so there's a number of us coming down. We've been invited to join the Women's Caucus there. We will be able to lobby. We may have a presentation there, but the goal is to actually come face to face with all of these mayors and council members, and in particularly the women that you just mentioned, the 6 mayors of the Orange County cities. That's a fabulous opportunity to get them one-on-one. Yeah.
May I ask if they have already been invited? Because I just heard about this from you. I am going to attend it. I didn't know about this event till you just mentioned it. So if those mayors have not been invited, then I would really appreciate if we can begin that process, because September, we still have some time.
Yes.
And I'm a person, I'll get in their face. That's what I did the last time. I'll just show up at the event and say, hey, are you coming to that? And make it like public so that they are able to do it.
I can't wait to work with you there on site. I think we're going to be a fabulous team. We're going to make a lot of progress. Hopefully Elahi will join us. They will be invited automatically because it's the association of all city council and mayors across the state. But we can double check, we can check in with their staffs, we can find out if they're planning to be there. That's all public information. I also wanted to say to Elahi's point about convening the community. This is the whole thing. What we're trying to do is create, as I call it, an ecosystem around each jurisdiction. We've had a lot of luck with League of Women Voters. They are ready and willing and able to step in and make connections and make calls and set up meetings. You do have to reach out to your local chapters, but they have proven across the state in various places that they have the connections, and they have a national and a statewide position on CEDAW, that they support CEDAW. So they're a natural fit for us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We really need to move on, but I do want to congratulate the progress you've made, Nancy, in California since you started the challenge is really remarkable, and you've got a lot of energy. There's a lot of movement, and we're very proud of what you're doing. So thank you so much. And excuse me, we appreciate that you joined us from where you are. Before we move on to our next topic, I do want to ask Karen Mulhauser, do you want to comment at all on the biggest challenge you're facing in Washington, D.C. and how you're approaching it? We don't have that much time, but I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, just very, very briefly, it's good to see Roopsie and some others that I haven't seen in decades. In Washington, D.C., the UNA National Capital Area Chapter has been working to get CEDAW ordinance passed for some time. There was a bill introduced in 2015 that didn't have a hearing or a vote. And this year, there's a hearing on June 30. And I put my email in the chat. And if anyone would like to learn more about it, I can circulate information. But it would be possible for any of you or others that you know to ask to give testimony or to submit written testimony. And I think that gathering information from other cities that have passed and started implementing CEDAW and having some success, telling that story, this is a good forum to do it. And I also want to acknowledge that Jill Follows is on the line,
Hi, Jill.
and there's a resolution in Fairfax County, which is also part of the National Capital Area UNA chapter. But after the hearing, there will be a vote later this year, and then because DC is a colony and not a state, we don't get to have our own laws unless the Congress says we can. So we'll have to wait 30 days and then before it could start being implemented. But and we probably don't want to make any noise about it being in front of Congress for approval. Because that might just stir up trouble from those who don't want us to have CEDAW. So
That's right.
in any case, I will put information, send out emails electronically to all of you who are interested.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Because we're supporting you. We're watching, and I should say, if not this time, then the next time, because just from personal experience and being involved with the Cities for CEDAW campaign since 2014, when it was launched at CSW at the UN. We have been involved here in Kansas City, and it was just now in 2022 that we achieved what we had asked for in terms of gender analysis ordinance and a gender equity task force. It took that long with lots of failures and stops and challenges. That's why I like the image of a red light, green light. We asked our mayor some time back and his chief of staff at the time, can we get your green light on this now that we've agreed on so many things? And the chief of staff said, no, we have done pretty much enough for women right now. We're moving on to other topics. So these challenges are unanticipated, and where you'll get your red lights, and we found many other ways. Strategically, there's no straight line. You have to go laterally. You have to find other strategies to work your community and educate your community and get support. It is not easy at all. In fact, Jill, I don't know if you want to comment, but in Fairfax, Virginia, we were very surprised. It didn't come out of nowhere, I know, and yet we hadn't heard much about Fairfax. Was it a long journey, or did you just succeed easily?
It did come out of nowhere. Thanks, Gail. We took a different approach than what I'm hearing expressed today. Our approach was to convene a dozen organizations with a footprint in the county, including the NAACP, the AAUW, as Karen pointed out, the UNA, NCA, the League of Women Voters, which I just put a message in the chat about, and the Human Rights Special Interest Group. What we found was that we had a very supportive supervisors, board of supervisors. We knew coming out of the gate, we were most likely to succeed with the resolution. And so we started off with the energy that we needed to make it happen within a year. We did not rely on the Commission for Women, which is a group of appointed women. Each supervisor appoints one person from their district. We do not have an operational commission. We have people, but they're not organized enough to have success. So we did a grassroots effort. So when I hear all of you speaking about how you have been able to, rely on your commissions for women in your counties, I'm jealous. We did not happen to have that work. So we did do a grassroots initiative, and we found out that our supervisors, no matter how much information we fed them, and we fed them a lot, beautifully organized books, and supplemental briefing books, they still chose to do their own learning curve. So our resolution, which we passed within the year, was that the Board of Supervisors would do its own deep dive into CEDAW, but they approved of what they believe CEDAW means based on all of the work of the grassroots efforts. So we're moving ahead to hold their feet to the fire and make sure they do their research in a timely effort. And but we are grassroots. We are not the appointed people on a commission for women in this county.
Oh, I see. Well, it's so every city and every county is different, as you can see, even from this small microcosm of CEDAW cities and counties. Every city has a different journey, a different path, and different successes. And every ordinance is different. Gender analyses are different. And so we're trying to capture all that in our report this year, which should come out this fall. If you haven't submitted to us, please let us know. We will be in touch with you as we capture the we'll send you that survey if we haven't heard from you. And we also have Mary Hansel joining us. Mary is one of our new icons. We have the senior icons and we have new icons. And Mary is working in CEDAW and human rights as a lawyer and professor, and has written widely on the topic and has served in many cities and counties helping, including Los Angeles County Ordinance and the San Diego County Ordinance and Irvine City Resolution. Mary, I don't know if you can hear us, but we see you've joined us. So if you want to comment.
Hear you. Thanks so much. Sorry I'm late.
No, that's fine. So Mary has a new idea, which I'd like you to talk about just briefly, if you want to announce that, to capture some of not just the updates and histories, but some actual accomplishments that we're working on now.
Oh, I'm not sure if this is what you're referring to,
Yeah.
but I was thinking it would be great to create a sorry, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't turn on my video right now. It would be great to create a catalog of the concrete actions that cities and counties have taken with respect to gender justice. So everything from, adding street lamps along, poorly lit roads, to Pittsburgh's Universal Basic Income pilot program, to San Francisco's Gender Equity Principles private sector initiative, to educational initiatives, trying to provide public education about stereotypes regarding domestic violence survivors. I mean, just it really runs the gamut. But I feel like, we're all trying to learn from each other, and this sort of list would be really helpful and would just help answer the question, in concrete terms, what does local gender justice look like? And once we have a working list, we can even add things that maybe haven't been tried yet, but should be tried according to experts, and looking to, I have a human rights background, so I'm biased, but looking to the CEDAW committee for their guidance. And, again, and once we have a working draft, we can even share it with local jurisdictions outside the US for their input and ideas, and hopefully they'd find it useful as well. But it just seems like what does it look like when the rubber hits the road of CEDAW? And one benefit I see is that I think jurisdictions are at different stages in terms of getting their gender data collection and analyses done. And I know that's like a giant feat. This would provide a list of actionable items that jurisdictions can do before completing that, while they're completing that, and ideas for addressing the gaps and problems they identify through their gender analyses. So I don't know, I feel like obviously things aren't going that great with respect to gender justice in the US. And so hopefully this would help a little more meet the moment in terms of concrete actions.
I think that's good. And I'm going to segue from that to our next topic, but I think you raised the right point of to have concrete specific actions that we don't all know about. We know about updates. Yes, we've gotten our ordinance and we now are starting on a gender analysis, but we don't know from many cities and other localities where they are in specific accomplishments necessarily. I'll just say a small one in Kansas City. A very tiny example is that we were successful in eliminating salary history from the job application at the city, and now in the private sector, they've expanded that in another ordinance. So this is a very tiny thing, but this will help women have pay equity further on in their lives. And we consider that a very small but very concrete way to address this kind of discrimination. We put on our agenda today that we would have some conversation around reproductive justice, sexual and reproductive health and rights. And I'd like to hear from you what you're dealing with. I will preface it by saying 2 or 3 things. One is that many cities and counties do not address this issue at all. They focus on economic justice, issues of poverty and health, in access to health and public education, safety, domestic violence, and sexual assault, and do not include the reproductive justice, much less abortion, in their ordinance. Krishanti Demiraj, one of our great leaders in terms of the work she has done in San Francisco and continuing to be our great mentor for any question we ever have about CEDAW, has said CEDAW is abortion neutral. And that seems to be true. I went back through the treaty again recently, and what we find is tremendous support for reproductive justice and rights. And I'm going to read you 2 or 3 comments from the treaty, the CEDAW treaty, which says, in the preamble, it sets the tone by saying the role of women in procreation should not be a basis for discrimination. And so that sets the tone that they're talking about justice in terms of health and rights and women's empowerment and the way they live their lives throughout the whole life cycle. Notably, the CEDAW Treaty is the only convention of the UN, the only human rights treaty to mention family planning, that women and their families have a right to plan their families and to have access. So I just want to set that tone that this is part of the CEDAW language. The Beijing Platform for Women also includes ensure equal access and equal treatment of men and women in healthcare and to enhance women's sexual and reproductive access and health and rights. So that these 2 documents, which are pivotal to the work we do, makes it clear that while it does not mention abortion itself, it is clearly focused on the right to health and access to information, education, services that they need. The agreed conclusions at recent CSW, Commission on the Status of Women 66 at the UN this year. Also, while climate and risk reduction for disaster risk reduction was part of the theme this year, reproductive rights was mentioned constantly in terms of access to health and safety of women. So I'd sort of like to know what you're dealing with and how you're planning on handling it. And second question, do you think that from the CEDAW community, we need to draft a statement or get behind any support?
Gail, I added the link to the CEDAW and Human Rights Council and abortion to the chat for everyone. Gail, you're muted.
Sorry, I muted if there was some outside noise. Thank you. But I'd love to hear from you. So, Carol.
Yes, I think I saw in the chat that it is about not criminalizing abortion, but it goes far deeper than that. Because this really is about the right to choose. I mean, I personally have not had an abortion, although I know many women who have had abortions, and some of them several abortions. But it's really about the right to choose. For example, a number of years ago, I was in fertility treatment. That was my right to choose. And I found at that time that actually fertility doctors receive the same sorts of death threats that abortion doctors receive, which was really surprising and very ironic to me. That because it was the same thing. They had this, there was a philosophy that it's God's will. So if God's will makes you pregnant, you have to have the child, or you have to give birth to the fetus. And if it's not God's will that you get pregnant, then a doctor is doing something evil by assisting you in becoming pregnant. So it really is all about the right to choice and what's going to happen with the reversal of Roe versus Wade. Just is the beginning, I believe. We don't know if there's going to be a movement to actually make it federally illegal. Right now, they're just talking about states' rights. But when you're dealing with zealots, there is that possibility that it could be that there could be arguments that is federally illegal, and it could prevail in this particular Supreme Court because it's not codified by Congress. And so it just goes very deep. I just finished producing a play in Berkeley, and I'm a first-time producer, and I produced Roe. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's the play that is about the people behind Roe versus Wade, the character, the various people, the events over the decades.
Really?
All the individuals and how they intersect. I knew I wanted to see something happen before or around the timing of the Supreme Court decision, right before it or right after it, although it will come down at the end of this month. That's what they do. They always make their major decisions, issue their major decisions at the end of June, then they go on recess.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
you, Carol. I wonder if we can't use the now significant statement by the Reverend Barber, who's doing the moral march today for poverty, the Poor People's March. I mean, I like his sentence, which is the faux moral narrative. We have to fight the faux moral narrative of the religious nationalism, and that whole rhetoric is really destructive to what we're about. On the other hand, it's very real and very powerful. Karen, you had a comment.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for raising the issue of reproductive rights and pointing out the language that does exist in the CEDAW language. And some of you may know that I used to run NARAL in the 70s, the National Abortion Rights Action League. And after I heard about the SCOTUS language on reversing Roe, I decided that I'd like to spend the next 4.5, at that time it was 5.5 months, working to turn out voters who support abortion rights. And the fact that it's also aligned with our work to get CEDAW passed in as many local communities and states as possible, and hopefully one day ratified, I see those as parallel opportunities to secure rights for women and girls. And so I just want to thank you for raising that. And I do believe that along with guns and climate and a few other issues, that the people who care about the right to choose abortion, if mobilized, can have an influence in the elections this year. And especially young women, because abortion has been legal their entire lives, and they just cannot imagine that it would be reversed. And young people are notorious for not turning out to vote on election day. So it's for anyone who has any extra time in your life, mobilizing people in your communities, and especially young people, to register and vote this year is critically important.
It really is. And that's why I was thinking, that we have to have, or we could have some language around it, because as you go forward with your officials and in your communities, it will come up now because it's moved to from the margin to the center of our public dialogue and discourse. Right. So we could have some language, if not officially, at least we can refer you to the relevant articles in CEDAW and Beijing Platform and CSW agreed conclusions that will be helpful, that remind people what human rights really are. And there's some good comments in the chat, which I refer to. If you go to the 3 dots in the chat, you can hit save the chat, and you can look at these comments later. We will also be recording this, of course, and send it to you. We did not want to keep you too far beyond this time. Are there any further any comments at the end in terms of questions or comments? We will be reconvening in September, but we are always in discourse with everyone who emails us and sends us information. And so we will be in touch with you. Any further comments or last questions? Jill.
Gail, can you put your email address in the chat, please?
I thought it was in there. I'll do it right now, but I thought it was in there. But thank you very much. Thank you. Sometimes I do forget that.
I also,
and Elahe.
I also want to share that, mark your calendar tentatively. Women Equality Day event is one of the signature event of Women's Intercultural Network for 26 years. And this year, we're going to focus on intersection of CEDAW and abortion and reproductive right. So that would be the theme. And we're going to collaborate with all the organizations that we can put this event together and be effective on that. The other thing is everything that's happening on CEDAW, whether a good article like Mary Hensel article, events like San Diego, or what's happening nationally, I posted to Cities for CEDAW Facebook page. So if you are on social media, follow that and stay in touch. You can put message on that for us. I also put my email here for anyone you want to add to our newsletter, which we had a specific newsletter this year with love presentation at UN on CEDAW issue. So we would be happy to be in touch with you.
Yes, and our event in August, which is August 26th, which is Women's Equality Day, and celebrating achieving the vote, fighting for and winning the vote. We are hoping to have experts. We don't just want to outline what the problems are. We want to look at solutions and hope and help for everyone in this topic. So we're hopeful that we'll find the right people. If you know some good scholars and researchers, speakers, thought leaders who could really help us have an excellent panel, we would welcome that. Nancy, you put your email in here. People do want to be in touch with you because what you're achieving in California serves as a great model for other states, of course. Carrie from the Philippines, thank you for joining us. Any comments at the end to close us out? You're our youth representative today.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually joined by Michaela and
Oh,
Ruth.
Michaela, hi.
Michaela.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, since we're research interns for Cities for CEDAW, this forum was actually so helpful. I mean, we've learned a lot. I mean, from how we really must have an initiative to like focus on the approaches needed that are based on each we must have, as mentioned by Mary, we must have a catalog of concrete actions based on the problems being faced by each country. And I mean this campaign really shows that one size does not fit all. I mean, it's so different. That's why we need complex solutions and very comprehensive plans in place. So thank you so much for having us. We're so excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us, and we will see you again. We know that what the work you're doing this summer is very valuable also, and maybe we'll have a report on that in our September meeting. That would be great. So good luck, Karen and Jill, and in our nation's capital. We're watching and keeping our fingers crossed and doing the other activism we need to do. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.